Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the kickoff of the 2023 Foodfare WPS Half Marathon, two-person relay, and 5K run. This year marks the 19th year for this event. It was initially planned as a single event organized by the Iron Cops team. This was a group of Winnipeg police officers who competed in grueling Ironman triathlons while raising funds for cancer research. They organized that first half marathon as an opportunity to build on that community commitment and get more people involved. The community response has been and continues to be phenomenal. Race director Nick Paulette has set the pace for the success since its inception. With that, allow me to turn things over to Nick to share some information about this year's event, how you can get involved, and what the community's efforts support. Nick?
Thanks, Claude. Good morning, everybody. It's been a real pleasure over the last really 20 years now to be involved in such a special event with a team of volunteers that I represent here today. And we continue to do our best to make sure we get the word out to the community to come and join us. One of the neat things, and timing is probably no better than now, is to ensure there's a strong bond between the police service and our community. And the cause of cancer is something that knows no boundaries. It's one of those things that can bring us all together in a unified cause. And so we encourage the community to come and join us in the two-person relay, the 5K, and the half marathon, to participate, to join us, to remember a loved one, to support a loved one, to stay healthy, to have some fun, to team build. And we look forward to welcoming you on May 7th. All the information can be found on our website at wpshalfmarathon.ca. But I look forward now to presenting a number of speakers who can speak to supporting our event. And we'll start with Minister Obby Khan from the provincial government. I thank you for coming, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the official kickoff of the 2023 Winnipeg Police Service Half Marathon. I am extremely honored to be here on behalf of our Premier, Heather Stephenson, and all of my colleagues at the legislature, and I'd like to thank you all for being here today as well. The Winnipeg Police Service Half Marathon is celebrating its 19th year, and I would like to congratulate all of the Winnipeg Police Service, Race Director, Inspector Nick Paulette, and all of the volunteers for their hard work and dedication in putting together this event and making it a success year after year. I also want to thank Dr. Vanan for his work he is doing in research for cancer. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Munther Zeed and the entire Zeed family for everything you do in this city and this province, and especially being the title sponsor today for this event for the Winnipeg Police Half Marathon. So thank you to the Zeed family and everything you do. Initially planned with the goal of attracting 200 runners to the inaugural race in 2005 to raise money for Canadian Cancer Society, the half marathon has now expanded to, I believe, almost 3,000 pre-pandemic, and we're going to get back to 3,000 now. That is absolutely amazing. Cancer is a disease that affects the lives of thousands of people in Manitoba every year, as I know this all too well with the passing of my father. By supporting this event as a runner, volunteer, or a spectator, as I will be handing out the water, you are helping to fight cancer and find a cure for this terrible disease. I want to take this opportunity to encourage all Manitobans to register as soon as possible, and please encourage your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers to get involved. Cancer affects us all. The Winnipeg Police Service has a long history of giving back to citizens of Winnipeg and serving as role models and leaders in our community. We cannot thank you enough, and I mean that with my whole heart. We cannot thank you enough for all the work you do to keep us safe and promote healthy communities. On behalf of the government of Manitoba, I would like to again thank the entire police service and everyone involved in this amazing event this year, and I look forward to making the most successful year the Winnipeg Service Half Marathon has had yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Since our very first year, we've enjoyed great support from the City of Winnipeg through its leadership and through other departments, and that continues this year. And I'm welcome and grateful, Your Worship, Mayor, for coming to join us here today. So I'll just turn over to you for a few words.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. We're gathered on Treaty 1 territory and the traditional home of the Métis Nation. And on behalf of all of the City of Winnipeg staff and employees, and on behalf of my City Council colleagues, it's my pleasure to be here as we launch and kick off the annual Winnipeg Police Half Marathon. And Minister Khan and Chief and Dr. Vanan, to members of the Winnipeg Police Service, and to Munther Zeed, as Minister Khan has said, thank you so much to you and your family for your ongoing sponsorship and support of this half marathon. Now, I live not too far from Portage Avenue, and so I know that annually on Sunday mornings in my former life, during Police Half Marathon Day, I would go out and be on my way to my church office and have to take a bit of a different route because of the marathon. So it's a great annual tradition, and I certainly want to recognize the work that's being done. Of course, the half marathon started back in 2005 with 13 committee members and a group of dedicated volunteers. And now here we are today to kick off the 19th annual race, and the total amount of funds raised for the Canadian Cancer Society has surpassed $2.5 million. And so thank you so much to the Winnipeg Police Service, to all the volunteers who over the years have made that fundraising possible, that is really making a difference in the lives of individuals. As we know, the Canadian Cancer Society works tirelessly to save and improve lives. And with the donations that have been raised, they're able to continue funding cancer research, and we're going to hear a little bit about that today from Dr. Vanan, I know, advocating for health-protecting policies and providing trusted information, resources, and support for Canadians and their families affected by cancer. So not only is the Winnipeg Police Service Half Marathon a great event, it's for a great cause. And if you haven't registered yet and you're interested in running or supporting or donating or sponsoring, I encourage you to do so today. This race has become an important event in the Winnipeg runners' calendar, and it continues to grow. And as Minister Khan mentioned, I think we're certainly over 2,000 runners this year, perhaps up to 3,000, to participate in either the half marathon, the two-person relay, or the 5K events. And I can see why. It's a fantastic course, starting and ending in the beautiful Assiniboine Park, and takes runners through the lovely surrounding neighborhoods. And so in closing, I do want to just once again echo my appreciation to all the volunteers that make this event possible, to all the runners who are training right now, to all the family members and friends who are finding ways to support this event and encouraging others to support it as well. And as you regain some of that race day momentum that has been lost over the past decades, your hard work and your dedication are sincerely appreciated, and you're making a difference in people's lives. So we'll see everybody on May the 7th. Thank you, merci, and miigwech.
Thank you, Mayor Gillingham. Again, the Winnipeg Police Service Half Marathon, by name, has enjoyed support of our executive, both by participation and in volunteering. Through the leadership of our executive is the only way that this event can happen. So I'm grateful over the years, and I'm grateful today to you, Chief, and welcome to the podium to share a few words.
Thank you, Nick. I always look forward to this time of the year. For me, the half marathon really marks the beginning of spring and early summer. Look forward to it each year. And I also look forward to it because it's a way for our police service to serve our community in a different way than the community is accustomed to. It allows us the ability to bring people together through running and through a half marathon to really remember those that have been touched by cancer. Some we get to celebrate with who have survived cancer, and others we get to remember who've been taken by this disease. It certainly, this event helps us shine a light on cancer, and it particularly raises funds for cancer research, with the focus being on brain cancer often. So for me, this becomes a premier event for us. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Nick and his team for all the work they do in putting this on. As it was mentioned, this was supposed to be a one-off event that Nick graciously, and now it's becoming a career off the side of his desk. Certainly, it's become a bit of a legacy for Nick and his team, and certainly for our service. So Like other marks of spring, we look forward to seeing Nick in his SpongeBob shorts, as the director of the race each year. So look forward to that. Thank you very much for coming.
It's true about the shorts. They're pineapple shorts. They're only allowed to be worn one day of the year to maintain a happy marriage. So yes, they'll be out May 7th. It was brought up, and I think I'd be remiss just to not really put an emphasis on our relationship with Munther Zeed, his father, and his family. When we had this idea for the one-off event, there was the first person I went to for help was Munther. Since day one, his family and himself have been loyal in helping us achieve where we've gotten to. I can say with confidence, without that vote of support in 2004, 2005, we probably would have floundered. So, Munther, if you don't mind, I know it's a little bit a surprise on you, but do you mind? I know you've got your own journey with cancer. If you want to share your own experience, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. As Nick said, he asked me to say a few words last minute. So he came to us at the beginning for some help, and they were starting new, and he's local and helping something that's new, being part of it, being the little guy, looking for some help. I know the feeling, so we helped, and it's been a journey, and it's now 19, 20 years, and it's been a great journey, and hopefully we can do many more years to come. Cancer, when we started it, we wanted to help. We wanted to help the police service with a cause that was, we didn't know much about it until it hit home. So once it hit home, cancer meant a lot. We needed to fight it. It's even a hard subject to keep talking about till today. My son was diagnosed with it back in 2011, and it's been 12 years now, and he's very healthy, very good. And with causes like this that come up that help the Cancer Society, Cancer Foundation, we need all to stick together and do something to help. They need as much money as possible to find a cure to hopefully end it once and for all. So please help what you can. Come out, run, support what you can. This is all local helping local. So thank you very much, and we'll hopefully all see you there in May. Have a nice day.
About 10 years ago, it was important to us as an organizing team to put a face to the work that our community was doing when it came to the funds raised. And by doing that, we decided to work with the Cancer Society to be able to find specific efforts where we knew we could identify to people where their funds were going. And what we've come to as we move into 2023 is a new partnership. And so we've got Dr. Vanan here to speak a little bit about where the funds will go as part of our new partnership with him and his team. And it's very inspiring to see the work firsthand of what brilliant minds can do on a disease that knows no racial, cultural, age boundaries. Although there's some specific parameters around the work Dr. Vanan and his team will be focusing on, it is definitely a unifier. So we're very grateful, Dr. Vanan, for taking the time out of your schedule. And I'll turn it over to you to give us an idea of what we can look forward to. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Nick and his team, for inviting me to actually participate in this. I would also like to thank Minister Khan, Worshipful Mayor, Mr. Gillingham, and Chief Smyth for actually taking time to make to this event. So, as every one of the speakers actually said here, this is something extremely important for us. So I work in cancer care, Manitoba, and I've been here for the past decade or so. I treat kids with actually brain tumors. So I can tell you that it's very common, although the general public doesn't actually, get to know about this until they actually get involved, either as a friend's kid getting cancer, or in some instances, their own family members, their own kids actually getting cancers. But let me tell you, this is something very common. We deal with this on a regular basis. So when Nick actually told me that he is raising funds for brain cancer, that's where I was actually extremely interested, in fact. So I should profess that this study, what we are actually going to discuss, it's basically brought about by Don Mabott, who is actually a neuroscientist in Sick Kids in Toronto. So he and his team actually figured this all out, and then they rolled this study out as a part of actually an international study where not only Canada but also a couple of other countries from different parts of the world are participating in this trial. So we at Cancer Care Manitoba are a part of this study, and so that's how I am actually involved in this study. So very briefly, I would actually like to walk you through exactly what this trial is and why it is important for us to actually fund these type of trials, so that hopefully it makes more sense for every one of us to understand and participate more and more in these type of events, right? Okay, so this is called the MED-CAN study. So as you can see there, the MET stands for metformin. We will actually talk about that. It's a very commonly used drug. I can tell you at least a couple of us in the room might be using this drug already for treatment of type 2 diabetes in adults. The MED actually stands for medulloblastoma, which is one of the most common, I would say, malignant brain tumors in children. When I say children, the age extends anywhere between 0 to all the way up till 18, 19 years. And then, of course, it's actually a pan-Canadian study, but there is also a couple of actually international, other countries involved. So it's an international study. So what is actually this? So if you see, we'll very briefly talk about what the disease is and what are the effects of actually the treatments which we offer for that disease. And then subsequently, we'll talk about why use metformin, because that's something very important for us. And then, of course, we will try to actually, go through what are the basic fundamental questions we are asking in this trial, and how are we going to actually do this study, and in fact, what are the important participating sites across Canada. Now, medulloblastoma, as I said, okay, it's the most common malignant brain tumors in children. Now, usually, this is a tumor which is actually present in the brain, in a particular part of the brain called cerebellum. And when this tumor actually presents, most of the kids, they have very varying type of side effects. It could involve most commonly headache, nausea, vomiting, and of course, things like difficulty in walking. Of course, if you're a very young kid, their head might be big enough. So we are able to actually, sort of guess that, okay, this could be probably the tumor which is actually in these patients. So the first thing we do is, of course, we actually image the brain to find out whether there's a tumor or not. And once we actually see the tumor, of course, these are some of the important things what we do. What are the different aspects of treatment? Of course, we call the surgeons to see whether they can go in and take the whole tumor out. So that's the first thing we do. So by taking out the tumor, we will not only be able to relieve some of the important symptoms, but also make sure that we make a diagnosis of actually what this tumor is. And because this is one of the most common malignant brain tumors, we usually, see this approximately, I would say, 1 or 2 cases or 1 to 3 cases in a year, of course, depending on the centers. In some of the centers, this is one of the most common tumors. Now, once the surgery is done, then, of course, the treatment aspect starts. Because this is a tumor which has a potential to spread all over the brain. So what we do is we actually give what we call chemotherapy. So that is something which we give either through the mouth or through the veins, IV. And then the other common aspect of treatment, especially in these type of tumors, is what we call radiation treatment. Even to this day, in most of these tumors, radiation is some of the what we call the standard of care treatment for these tumors. Now, of course, 70 to 80% of these patients survive. Again, it also depends on what type of medulloblastoma you have, but almost 70 to 80% of the patients survive. But what actually happens is, because of actually the treatments what we give, these are all very young kids. So obviously, the treatments not only affects the cancer cells, but it also affects actually the other normal parts of the brain. So what are the normal parts of the brain which we're talking about? So we have what we call the corpus callosum. So these are nothing but, I would say, dense fibers, something like electric cable. Actually, we have 2 parts of the brain, the left and the right side. These 2 get connected through what we call the corpus callosum. These are nerve fibers. And then you have another part of the brain called hippocampus, which actually helps importantly in memory as well as actually new neuron formation. So obviously, if these areas get hit, what are the consequences of it? So if you see, that will have an effect on cognition. So that is something very, very important. We all know how important it is for memory. In fact, all the speakers talked about actually the event. So they very clearly said it started off in 2005. They quoted a lot of numbers. All those things involve actually those parts of the brain which are very important. So cognition, which involves actually learning and memory deficits, obviously, if these parts of the brain are affected, then you'll get actually so processing speed, and then of course executive function. So in general, overall, these kids take a huge hit in terms of actually the side effects of treatment. Now, therefore, it's actually important for us to not only try to decrease these side effects as much as possible, but also equally important is, are there ways by which we can try to improve upon these functions? So this is where actually this drug comes in. So Don's group in sick kids in Toronto, what they did was, of course, as I told you, this is a very commonly used drug in adults. It's used for treatment of type 2 diabetes. So what they did was they simulated the same experience what the kids undergo in mice. So they sort of implanted tumor cells in mice, made these tumors happen, take the tumors out, treated the mice with radiation, and then what they did was they gave these drugs, the metformin, to these mice and found out that one, it's safe, and two, most important is the cognitive function in the mice actually improved. So how did this happen? In fact, so basically what metformin does is that all of us have actually what we call stem cells in the brain, which normally help us to produce neurons. So the metformin helps to actually stimulate these stem cells. So therefore, there are no new neuron formation, and that potentially helps in actually the cognition as well as actually the memory function. So they took that data and said, okay, let's do it as a pilot study in actually humans. So they did it in children who had undergone cancer treatment, and they also found out that it's tolerated very well, it's very safe, and more importantly, there was a definite benefit when we gave metformin to these kids. So this trial, what we are actually proposing is actually a second trial where we are trying to use metformin on a slightly larger group of patients, right? Of course, there are some common side effects. These are some things which we always keep in mind when we actually use this drug, and we will watch out for these side effects and make sure that we alter the doses to, sort of cope with these side effects. Now, let's see how we actually, what are we actually asking? What are the fundamental questions we're asking in terms of this drug? So what we are actually trying to do is, does metformin actually help improve, memory, processing speed? So in general, does it have an impact on cognitive function in kids who have actually had treatment for medulloblastoma? So what are we looking at? We are specifically looking at whether metformin help the white matter grow in that what we call corpus callosum. That's the sort of dense interconnecting cable-like network fibers between the left and right side of the brain, right? Okay, so these are the two fundamental questions we are asking. Are we able to do this? Now, how are we going to do this? So what we're trying to do is we take, let's say, a bunch of kids, and we randomly divide it into two groups. One group will get the drug metformin. The other group will get placebo. That means there's no medicine there, but we'll simulate actually a medication. And then at the end of the study, approximately 16 months, we will try to actually find out, compare these two groups and see whether the kids who actually received metformin did have any improvement in cognitive function. So we will do a battery of tests to assess the cognitive function of these patients. Now, because it's a pan-Canadian trial, so obviously you see there are a number of actually sites across Canada who are actually participating. Of course, Sick Kids in Toronto is actually the sponsor. We at Cancer Care, we are almost on the verge of actually opening this trial. So probably, I think prior to the start of the marathon, probably we should be able to ready to start this trial, in fact. And as I said, and everybody said here, the most important thing is the Canadian Cancer Society has actually sponsored this trial. Of course, CAHR, the Canadian Institute of Health Research, is also sponsoring this trial. And of course, very important is, organizations like the Winnipeg Police Services Half Marathon, which actually contributes to the Canadian Cancer Society. Now, remember, this is something very important because it is dedicated funding to brain cancer research. So this is something extremely important for us. And again, I would be very, very thankful to all the folks here who have been here and making this happen. And I personally would also take this opportunity to say that I will try to actually be participating as a 5K runner at this time. So I'll volunteer for a 5K run this time. Hopefully by next year I'll be actually running the half marathon. Okay, so thank you once again for giving me this opportunity, and I wish all the best for Nick and his team for the half marathon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vanan. Thank goodness for brilliant minds, much more brilliant than mine, that we have people doing this kind of work. That'll end our time here together. I'm just going to get a group photo here with our team visitors, and then if there's any one-off interviews anybody would like to do, we'll certainly facilitate that. Thank you all for coming.